We now come to episode 4 in the first season of The Mandalorian, Sanctuary. Now, I did really enjoy this episode, however, this episode takes some reference from and also directly copies 2 episodes of other Star Wars media that I am all too familiar with, and I will get to that later. So what happens? Mando is on the run with a child, and he heads to a planet where he decides will make a good sanctuary for him and the child for a few months before the other Mandalorian, or just general bounty hunters, catch up with him. On the way, he comes across a mercenary who's actually a former shock trooper for the rebellion. However, they both come across this farm who will offer them a place to stay in return for help against a problem that they are having with a local cult, who are consistently stealing their crops. Problems arise, however, when Mando realises that this cult has an ATST. However, instead of deciding to give up and leaving the farmers to fend for themselves, he and the ex-shock trooper help train the farmers to fight, and they end up destroying the ATST and the forces of the cult troopers to retreat. Mando is just ready to settle in, but then he gets ambushed by another bounty hunter who has found him and the child, and in order to protect the child, Mando realises that he must leave the planet as soon as possible. So just from that description alone, you can guess what the episode or episodes of other Star Wars media this episode pretty much copies. It's the 2 episodes from Star Wars The Clone Wars, A War on Two Fronts, where the Jedi have to train some rebels on Onderon to fight against the CIS, and the training sequences are pretty much the same, aside from the farmers not using droids to train with. However, I can let that slide, but the other episode it takes basically the same premise of the story is from the episode called Bounty Hunters, where Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka find themselves on a planet where the farmers are being attacked by some characters who turn out to be Hondo Ohnaka. And so Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka train the farmers to fight against Hondo's pirates. Now, don't get me wrong, I have nothing wrong nor against taking these ideas and references from other Star Wars media, because it makes you look and think, oh, that's cool, because it's taken inspiration. However, this was a direct copy of the story. When this episode was playing out, Mando was training the farmers, and I thought, oh nice, a nod to the episode War on Two Fronts. However, as the episode continued to play out, I thought there was something familiar about this episode, other than just the farmers training, and that is that it directly copies the Bounty Hunters, ironically, episode. I think this is the reason why I don't enjoy this episode as much as I could have, just because I've seen this episode before, and not just in the Clone Wars, but elsewhere as well, so I know more or less what's going to happen. However, there was a lot of other parts of this episode that I really did enjoy and thought was cool as well. For example, Mando and Cara having a fight, but instead of it being a gunfight, it's a fist fight, and this I really enjoyed because it's different. I've said it a number of times in these reviews, not just in the Clone Wars, but for other things as well, that because it's sci-fi and it's Star Wars, you expect there to be big laser fights and sword fights with big explosions and ridiculously advanced technology. However, it's nice to see something different, like this fight, because it's not only just a fist fight, but it's a fist fight between only 2 people, which is something that we don't really get to see very often, and it's nice to see. I also want to mention about the child just sat there watching the fight with his bowl of soup. It's a little comedic moment, and it got a laugh out of me. We also got some more information about Mando's backstory in this episode. It's mainly to do with the fact that he never takes off his helmet in front of people. Now, my slight issue with this is that surely after this conversation with a mother about not taking off his helmet, he does it in front of children and the child, and now it might be the case that there is an exception to the rule because they tend to forget things. However, it's a cliched reason. I don't think it's it. I think it's more that there is some form of like glass in the window in front of Mando, so they don't actually see him, but he can see them. While I do say this is a little stupid, I do like how they keep Mando's head and face out of the shot in order to keep his identity a secret, which I'm very grateful for them doing that. However, I do like hearing about him talking about the last time he took off his helmet when he was just a child, and the reason is due to Mandalorian culture. I think it's cool to look at his psyche and the reasons for doing these things. I think we'll get more explanation as these episodes progress. The last thing I want to mention is that I really like the thought that there would be more backstory with the mother in this episode. They had her character built up really well in this episode by making her being one of the only ones who knows how to use a blaster and having her be wise and confident leader. But knowing something about Mando, but as we as the audience do not know, but at the end of the episode, Mando just leaves without any mention of where she comes from. Now maybe there is an explanation that I missed, or maybe we'll come back to this planet and find out, but I'm highly doubtful. I just thought we'd find out a bit more about her, and especially with some connections with the rebellion or the Empire, like Cara did. So Some other things I do just want to point out that I liked is Mando chucking currency at the barmaid in the cantina. It wasn't anything massive, but I thought it was funny. The farmers being scared of the ship's door opening as well is quite funny as well. It got a comedic moment out of me. It shows they're not used to this kind of technology and how it works. I also like Mando and Cara sneaking around the cult camp silently and didn't use their blasters. This is what I wanted from the last episode when Mando was breaking the child out of the Empire's hands. And this is how I wish that it would have played out. On top of the Empire, I really love the design of the ATST in this episode. The moment it switches on and stands up, you can feel the intimidation off of it, and I love that. Also, with the ATST, I think it might have been an AI-controlled walker. I don't know, but the way it was walking and moving doesn't seem like it was controlled from the inside, but more thinking for itself. However, I did like this episode for the first 15 minutes, but my excitement was short-lived when I realised it was basically copying something I've seen already before, without changing the premise of the story. However, without watching the Clone Wars, I can see how you would enjoy it. However, we will see in the next episode which planet Mando will travel to next in order to protect the child from the advancing bounty hunter forces.